Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back to the stage the founder of Mic Drop Media, Sam Ali.
Hey everyone. How's everyone doing? Everyone's recharged? Everyone's got something to eat? Everyone's good? Everyone's fine? We're gonna get a little bit more people gonna be trickling in right now. I'm like covered in like za'atar dust right now. Like I'm just, there's not, like, what did you eat? It was so delicious. It was amazing. And it's great that there's just so many places all around Dearborn where you can get za'atar, or so many places where you can get coffee. It's just, you can kind of try it out. That's what I've been telling a lot of people who are, from out of town. Just try out everything. Try everything and, and figure out what you like. The biz souk, they were like, he's gonna bring up the biz souk. I know he's gonna do it. Everyone has checked it out? The biz souk and everything? That's awesome. It's great. A lot of great stuff. Kind of just shout out. What are some things that you kind of found interesting? Maybe some stuff that maybe back home that you haven't seen. What's been your favorite part of the biz souk? The Jerusalem coin shop. That is, how cool is that? And there's a lot of people who. Yeah. It's like how people like collect coins and stuff, and then to have stuff like that. What was that? Okay, it sounds like everybody was at the Jerusalem coin shop. Wow. I mean, it's such a wide variety of things. It is really, truly like a bazaar. It's almost like walking into like one of those bazaars like that you see like in Morocco or in Turkey, and you kind of feel like in this immersive experience where you kind of feel like you're going into a bazaar, like those scenes in Aladdin. You know what I mean? You're just walking in, but you don't have to worry about your hand getting chopped off if you take something. But that's neither here nor there. But like I said, please support the vendors, support the people that are here. They're doing a great job. They're going to be here, like we said, all day today and all day tomorrow. And it's just a really cool way to give back and to support each other. I think that's just kind of, the best way to do it. And like we mentioned, several of the vendors are going to be giving most, if not all of their proceeds to, like I mentioned, all of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. And I think that's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, definitely give them a hand and everything. But yeah, as we continue to wait for some more people to come in, there's just been a lot of conversations, a lot of things going on. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that Dearborn's been in the headlines. Been in the headlines of social media lately. Sometimes not for the best reasons, but just the resiliency of this city to step up for each other. And the funny thing is, sometimes the loudest voices may not be from the Arab Americans, from the Muslim Americans. It's actually whether it is the Christian community or the Jewish community or the people who step up and they're just like, no, Dearborn is not like that. We do feel welcome. We do feel the love from our neighbors. And that's kind of the best part, when you have those kind of people who step up to the plate and tell, these outsiders who come in here and try to paint this picture. Like there's this one TikToker, I don't know if you guys, saw her videos, who just showed up and she's like, I'm gonna go eat bacon in front of the mosque. We're like, oh. What's gonna happen? We're just gonna explode? She's like, oh, I'm gonna go into this restaurant and I'm gonna put a tattoo on my arm. And the dude was just like looking at her like, okay. What? Like she came in with this preconceived notion of what Dearborn is, and she showed up and everybody was just killing her with kindness. Killing her with kindness. She's trying to get someone to like prove her mindset of what she thinks Dearborn is. Nobody was giving her an inch, and I loved it. It was amazing. Nobody. Come here. Anybody who says, all these tweets and everything about Dearborn, I can't stand someone who says something about Dearborn and has never been here. Like that makes no sense. So if they have any issues, if they think that, there's some Sharia law, we always hear about that, Sharia law is going around. Okay, so here's my thing with the Sharia law. If Sharia law was going on in Dearborn, it's taken over, commit Sharia law, I just want to know, why does Dearborn have one of the best gentlemen's clubs in the entire state? Parthenon, right there on Michigan and Oakwood. If it was Sharia law, that place would not be there. I'm just saying. I know that's a very weird example, but I'm just trying to prove a point. At the end of the day, everyone, lives together. We're all chilling. We're all happy. So any outsiders, just kind of put them off to the side and everything. You want me to smile? You want me to smile? Oh, I thought you were taking a picture. Just, I had told a couple of people that this wasn't being live streamed, and apparently it is being live streamed. Someone actually reached out to me and said that it was being live streamed. There's Breakthrough News, I believe, is live streaming this on YouTube. Yeah, give it up for Breakthrough. Give it up for them. So if you would like to go back and see any of these, any of these sessions, definitely check them out on YouTube. So, sounds like we are going to get started with the second half of the programming. Does I get a thumbs up? All right, we got a thumbs up from the guys back there. And the topic is my favorite topic in the world: sports. Love it. Yeah, sir. Yes. Okay. 100%, and I totally agree with that. And 100%. And and what he's saying is that Sharia law is just it's a concept that what people, and it derives from the Ten Commandments and stuff. So this kind of education, very, very, very important. And when you see someone who's misinformed, make sure you call them out, let them know the right information. All right, that's the most important thing. So, all right, back to our panel discussion. It's about sports. I love sports. It's amazing. It's the greatest thing. But behind all of that triumph and seeing your team get that big win, there's just this other side of sports where you have major sports organizations almost kind of normalizing genocide and normalizing human rights violations with these partnerships that they have with governments and other organizations. And we've got two amazing speakers who are going to be talking about that. First is journalist Ismail Kushkush, and we have, you go ahead, right? He's gonna be, and we've got, one of the most well-spoken law professors you're gonna see out there, Khaled Beydoun. Please welcome these guys to the stage. You want the furthest one? Yeah, okay.
So, good afternoon. The title for this discussion is Sportswashing, and we were hoping that we would have exciting news given yesterday's vote at UEFA, the European Confederation of Football Associations, but that got delayed till next week. We will discuss this, but we want to talk about sports washing, the intersection of sports and politics, how that could either be a form of resistance or a form of enabling authoritarianism, corruption, etc. So let's start with sports washing, the definition of sports washing. I mean, how would you define it? It's a new term, last 10 years. What does that actually mean?
Well, assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's great to be here. It's great to be in Dearborn, which is home. Before we get started, one thing I feel obligated to say is 2 days ago marked the 22nd year anniversary of Edward Said's passing. And if you guys know anything about Edward Said was very much an icon, a trailblazer, and a big reason why it is I do the work that I do today, and very much a cornerstone of ADC. So I wanted to take some time to recognize Edward Said in his pioneering work that brings us all in many respects to convenings like this one. And I think me and Ismail are going to speak for an hour. We'd like to spend maybe 2/3 of our conversation with us discussing interactively, and maybe the final 20 minutes giving you all an opportunity to engage in questions and comments on the topic, which is sports washing. Just to lead off with a definition of what sports washing is. Sports washing is a deliberate effort on the part of governments, corporate actors, entities, to use sports as a vehicle to sort of reconstruct or rehabilitate their image, especially entities, governments specifically, which have engaged in human rights crimes, ethnic cleansing, and obviously with Israel and this genocide, capitalizing on sports as a way to sanitize their image on a global scale.
And not only governments, but also owners of sports institutions, of clubs, of soccer clubs, etc. Can you give some examples from the world today?
Yeah, there's a series of examples, and I know you're an expert on this too, so you can also address a lot of examples. But one example that obviously comes to mind, and an example that's taking place right now in real time, is Israel's playing in the Europe side of the FIFA qualifiers, and there's a mass movement happening right now where people are trying to oust Israel and make sure that they do not participate in the World Cup. We talked backstage about how South Africa during apartheid also was using football, but also cricket and other sports, rugby, to sort of sanitize and shield what they did with regard to racial segregation and apartheid in that country. But one thing I feel obligated to say is that whenever sports washing is brought up in the mass media, they only home in on Arab and Muslim countries, right? You saw during the Qatar World Cup a couple of years ago, which I attended, there was mass media coverage about how that government specifically was using sports washing to conceal what they were doing in terms of human rights issues. But that is never a sign when it's Western, white majority, or Zionist elements very deliberately using sports as a vehicle to conceal their human rights atrocities.
Right, with the Israeli national team. The Israeli national team, which is a part of the European Federation, and we'll talk about how Israel actually became a part of the European Federation, because it was initially a part of the Asian conference and it was expelled in 1974. But Israel actually does have the Israeli national team, football team, does actually have a chance to qualify into the next World Cup here in the U.S.
It's a slim chance, though.
It's a slim chance, but theoretically they still can do it. I mean, they're on equal points with Italy in a group that has Norway, Italy, Israel, and Moldova. Israel qualifies to the World Cup. I mean, what would the reaction be here? And we're already seeing a response to this in Europe. When I started the discussion about, we were hoping to see a vote yesterday. I think the entire world was hoping to see a vote of whether the European Federation is going to expel Israel or not. That vote got postponed till next week, especially after a threat from the Trump administration that if UEFA and FIFA expel Israel, that there will be consequences. And we know that the chair of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, has strong relations with Trump. And some of us journalists have been questioning, what are the reasons for those? FIFA has some issues, and et cetera. But let's talk a little bit about activism, before getting into the more. I mean, there is a history of confederations of sport federations expelling teams from nations that are responsible for human rights abuses. 1956, the Confederation of African Football, which manages football in Africa, which was started by 4 nations, Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and South Africa. When South Africa refused to send a multiracial team to the first African Cup in 1957, South Africa was expelled. 1960, it was expelled from FIFA. So there's a history of that. And then we saw in 2022, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, FIFA and UEFA expelled Russia. So there is a history of that. And we know now, ADC has put out a call to have Israel expelled from UEFA. Are you want to talk about ADC's?
Yeah, and I think that, so ADC, this organization specifically is, has signed on and is really championing the cause for confederations across Europe to preempt Israel from partaking in FIFA qualifiers and that Israel at large be banned. You guys might have saw a couple of days ago, and it was a really momentous occasion that Spain, right? Spain specifically said that if Israel partakes in the World Cup, that they weren't going to partake as well. And it's really powerful coming from Spain. And I know that Spain was awarded a couple of nights ago on Thursday for, just being, a spearhead in Europe specifically about, standing against the genocide. But Spain doing it is really important because Spain is one of the most powerful football clubs in the world, right? I think they're ranked #1 right now, actually, in the FIFA rankings.
Top,
And they're one of the favorite teams, kind of like forecasted to maybe win the World Cup in 2026. So Spain standing up and saying that we are not going to participate in the World Cup if Israel qualifies, I can tell you is not only symbolically powerful, it is actually practically powerful. And I'm writing a book on the World Cup. We talked about this, and I want Ismail, inshallah, maybe to write a chapter to co-author. I'm going to try to lobby him. But the only country that is really standing as a material blockade to much of the world, making this exclusion of Israel happen is the United States, right? We saw, especially early on in the genocide, it was global South countries from places across South America, right? Colombia, Brazil, these are football giants, right? They'd sign on to excluding Israel from the World Cup. If you removed the United States and their sort of like political, fangs from, making this happen possible. So I think ADC being involved is really important because it allows, Arab Americans and Muslim Americans and all Americans who are really concerned with the ways in which sports, but also football specifically, is really being exploited by Israel and its co-conspirator, the United States, to sanitize a genocide that is, look, we're sitting here right now and this genocide is 722 days in progress. And a big reason why that is because the United States, through all of its tentacles, whether it be meddling with international human rights organizations like the UN, or whether it's sports, right, is giving a lifeline to this genocide in ways that need to be stopped.
Right. On top of national teams, we're also talking about clubs. Israeli clubs that are involved in the Champions League and the European League. Maccabi Tel Aviv, Maccabi Haifa, Haifa, that have played in. And
you saw Maccabi Tel Aviv, right?
Tel Aviv
Holland banned them from coming into the country a couple of days ago.
Exactly, and also in Greece. The fans who had a big sign, show Israel the red card. 2 weeks ago, Italian fans, when Italy played against Israel, half of the stadium was empty. There were Italian fans dressed in black when the Israeli national anthem was played, turned their backs on. This is, if the vote to expel Israel from UEFA or FIFA goes through, what are the consequences? It's not for soccer or for the national team, but this also goes to the clubs, and possibly impacting other sports.
So I think it's important. I'm guessing not everybody here, Yani, follows European club soccer.
Right.
Maccabi Tel Aviv, their fans are the ones. Remember, they were chanting "Death to the Arabs" when they were marching through the streets of Amsterdam, right? And they were the ones that were attacking people on the streets of Amsterdam, and then they try to play victim when people, because if you've been to Amsterdam, you know there's a lot of Arab, there's a lot of Moroccans and Algerians in Amsterdam. So they responded. So that was a major thing that, you know, the Holland Confederation said, this club specifically, because they are terrorizing local people in Amsterdam and Holland at large, cannot come in. So at the club level, it's also really significant. But what's happening right now is not the beginning, right? We've seen activism at the club level for a long time. My wife, who I think is sitting in the stands, know that my favorite team is FC Celtic. Do you guys know who FC Celtic is? Show of hands. The Green Brigade, right? The Green Brigade, they've been pro-Palestinian for decades, right? These guys, I went to a match, let me tell you. Yani, there's more Palestinian flags in the crowd than there are Ireland flags or Scottish flags when you go to that club team. So I think there's been many clubs that have been activated. We talked about the Chilean soccer club back, Palestina in the back. So the beauty of soccer specifically, or football specifically, is that it is an intrinsically politicized sport that has, very deeply rooted historical lineages with pro-Palestinian activism. What's been great in recent years is that the genocide, for better or for worse, has activated and intensified that activism. And it's also spawned new sort of like clubs to champion Palestine in ways that hasn't been the case before. I mean, you saw during the Champions League, for instance, right? How Palestinian flags were raised across Paris. Yeah. And, Paris Saint-Germain isn't a pro-Palestinian team by any stretch. No. But in many respects, it became that way, right? Because their rise, in a Qatari guy owns them, their rise intersected with the genocide in ways that really spawned pro-Palestinian activists within their fan base.
Right. I mean, and this is with the fans. I mean, you watch European soccer, especially Champions League. I mean, there isn't a game where you won't see the Palestinian flag. Yeah. But there's also, I think, an issue that needs to be discussed and raised is the role that players, even who have been trying to bring attention to this. I mean, players of either Arab or Muslim descent, Riyad Mahrez, Hakim Ayash, who played, Moroccan, Algerian, who play in big European clubs. Hakim Ayash previously with Chelsea, Riyad Mahrez previously with Man City, who on their social media, who have been trying to bring attention to this. Mo Salah, maybe a bit late to this, but also has been discussing some of this. I mean, what role do you see, for players who are, and really it's not just players of Arab or Muslim descent, but even a commentator like Gary Lineker, who was fired from the BBC for his commentary on events and genocide in Gaza.
Look, I can tell you at the beginning of this genocide, when I began speaking and posting and talking about it, I had some of the biggest soccer players in the world reach out to me privately about how do I address this in ways that don't jeopardize my career, or jeopardize my brand, or don't get me in trouble. And I had candid conversations with many of the biggest footballers in the world about how to navigate like a public position that would sort of like balance how they felt politically and from a conscientious standpoint, and that would safeguard them. But the truth was, there was no safety at that juncture, right? Because the reality is, a lot of these clubs are owned by either Zionist owners or, at worst, apolitical owners who are more concerned with their corporate brand. But you're exactly right. A lot of players, and one of my contemporary heroes who I think about as, in some respects, maybe being like the Muhammad Ali of football, is somebody like Mesut Ozil, right? Who played for Germany and later on played for Turkey. He was vocal on Palestine at the height of his political career, when he had the most to lose. He spoke out on the genocide of Uyghur Muslims when he was playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, Arsenal. Right? Yeah. When he was one of the best midfielders in the world with Germany, he was taking positions where it was really dangerous. So there are a lot of players that are speaking up. People like Karim Benzema, for instance, who's a striker, has made several posts on Gaza, especially early on. the great French striker who precedes Zidane. He's not Arab or Muslim. His name doesn't come to is Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona, right?
Yeah.
He's been
Cantona's
very vocal
politically, yeah.
on Gaza for a long time. Salah until recently has been a disappointment, and I'm half Egyptian, so I can say that, right? I wish he would speak up more on what's happening in Gaza because he has a huge fan base in Gaza. But even you guys might have saw this image, the brand We Wear the Peace posted it, and it was really powerful, how 2 Gazan children were killed. One of them was wearing a Messi jersey, and the other one was wearing a Ronaldo jersey, right? And it was so symbolically powerful because, these athletes, these football players are able to reach people in a way that you and I never can, right? Because sports and football specifically has a global and universal currency that law and journalism just doesn't have. So when I see that people like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, who are not only the most famous footballers, but in fact, probably the most famous people in the world, can't make a simple humanitarian, claim or condemnation or stance with children, that is an indictment on them, in my opinion, right? Because Palestinian kids are not only fans of these guys, they're dying. They're dying while wearing their jerseys. So it's heartbreaking to me. And it is you got to call it cowardice when these big names aren't doing the minimum to at least address what's happening in Gaza.
Right. And we do, someone like Mo Salah, again, there is a critique of publicly coming to this late, but I think privately, I think people who know these players, they do have a clear position on this. How
do you feel about that, right? How do you feel when somebody like Mohamed Salah, who's making tens of millions of dollars, right? He's one of the top players in the world. He's, at least outwardly, he's like a pious mu'min. He likes Christmas trees too, but that's a conversation. It's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah,
but how do you feel when these athletes that, we revere and respect as players aren't like taking even a minimal position on what's happening?
Right. I think that these not every athlete is necessarily politically conscious, and I think that's where outreach to players like who are in the position to talk about these issues, I think is important. Not everyone comes from that background or grew up in an environment where they
Not everyone's political. Right, but is it a political responsibility during times of genocide that even non-political people should speak up?
Right, and I think that's where we're starting to see it. Yeah. And that's the importance of outreach.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important for people who are involved to reach out to these people in these positions.
You're a lot more forgiving than me, man, because I don't think you need outreach, right?
Yeah,
if you see like these guys are watching the same social media videos and images that you and I are watching, that we're all watching. When you're seeing kids dismembered and homes destroyed and this like a post-apocalyptic landscape that is Gaza. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but especially if you're Arab and Muslim, and you're seeing that, you know what I mean? I think there's a greater urgency for Arab and Muslim football players and athletes, and you see it in the UFC, right? You see it in the UFC, and you see it in boxing to an extent, with these athletes speaking up in ways that the biggest stars are not speaking up. And to me, it's, again, it's a lack of courage and it's cowardice.
Yeah. Other than soccer, soccer is the most important sport. But do you see, again, with sports washing, and the bringing of the Gaza genocide, Palestine, are there other sports you see where this is happening?
Well, look, I'm a huge boxing fan, and we all know that the most important political figure within sports comes out of boxing, Muhammad Ali. Right, and Muhammad Ali, in many ways, was the flag bearer, and in some respects, the pioneer of being politically vocal and politically powerful within sports. And we're seeing that now in combat sports. People like Habib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, my friend Bilal Muhammad, who was the welterweight UFC champion who was of Palestinian origin, not only addressed the Palestinian cause, but wear it around his chest. He came out, you guys saw he played Demi Falastini when he came out to the cage at his UFC fights, dedicates his platform on social media to address on a daily basis what's happening in Gaza. So we're seeing it across sports, but I think really powerfully in combat sports, aside from football.
Right. There was also that incident, I think a few weeks ago, where protesters in Spain, the cycling race,
Yeah. I'll tell you, share a funny story. So a couple of years ago, I was, are any UFC fans in the building? Okay, some UFC fans, okay, good. So UFC during the pandemic, you might recall, was hosting fights at Fight Island, which is in the UAE, right? Arab country, Muslim majority country. And I was gonna go to one of the fights, but they would not allow Palestinian flags or Palestinian jerseys like this. Anything that symbolized Palestine would not be allowed in the country. And when I found that out, I decided I wasn't gonna go, right? It was heartbreaking that, during, and this is before the genocide, but during the occupation, and it hasn't been 720 days, it's been 77 years, let's be frank about that, right? So the fact that you couldn't bring in any Palestinian paraphernalia inside an Arab country, to me, was an indictment on that country. And being Sudanese, UAE is spearheading what's happening with the Sudanese genocide. So there's a lot of tentacles to sports washing coming out of countries like the UAE as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a whole long conversation.
That's a different conversation, huh?
But I mean, we're going to open up to questions in a little bit. But I think before we move to that, I do want to talk a little bit about Palestinian soccer, which I think this is not just about whether the Israeli Football Federation gets banned or not, but I think the impact of what the genocide has had on Palestinian football. 421 Palestinian footballers have been killed, half of them children. The infrastructure of the Palestinian Football Association destroyed. The killing of Suleiman al-Abeid, 41, known as the Pele of Palestine. I mean, where do you think this is? How much impact is this going to have on the sport? In Gaza. I mean, and it has to be said. I mean, the Palestinian national team. I mean, of course, given the circumstances, but even with last year, the performance in the Asian Cup, I thought was. Was honorable. I mean, to qualify to the second round and to lose the host country, Qatar. I mean, you actually had some decent performances.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it highlights how genocide and erasure takes place across different spheres and sectors of life. You can definitely make the claim that Palestinian football as an enterprise is also being genocided. When you talk about 420 players being destroyed, the entire sort of, entity of Palestinian football, which is a source of hope, which is a source of upliftment, of empowerment for the Palestinian people, is being entirely exterminated intentionally by the state of Israel, right? We see that with the mass killing of players at every stage of their careers, right? From the senior level all the way to junior level players, but also infrastructure, like you've mentioned, right? Training facilities, stadiums, are also being destroyed. It's a deliberate form of erasure that is a bleak tentacle of the genocide that is being, advanced by the state of Israel, which intersected with, you guys got to know, like when you were watching Palestine trying to qualify for this last World Cup, and I so wish it happened, man, because there would have been nothing more powerful than seeing Palestinian flags in the belly of the beast, right? In these American stadiums during the World Cup, would have been a direct rebuttal, a direct indictment on this country specifically, because this country is it's more than just an enabler of genocide, it's a co-conspirator of this genocide. So to see Palestinian flags within, whether it's like, whatever it's called, the stadium in New York or the stadium in LA or Seattle, while the United States is advancing a genocide, would have been such a powerful indictment coming from the grassroots level. I was in Qatar during the 22 World Cup, and let me tell you, there was nothing more sublime and beautiful, man, than sitting in that stadium and seeing more Palestinian flags than Brazilian or Argentinian or French flags while those teams were playing. Like, I wrote that Palestine won the 2022 World Cup. They won the World Cup because the one country that was on everybody's mind, that everybody was rooting for, was Palestine. So if Palestine would have qualified, it would have been so powerful, but you're exactly right. The fact that they had no training facilities, these players had to like train in Qatar and, you know, these foreign countries and still perform so admirably. I think if they would have had a home terrain to train on, they would have qualified for the 2026 World Cup. But seeing these players, and especially like luminaries like the Palestinian Pele being assassinated, is heartbreaking, but it's got to be more heartbreaking for Palestinian kids who are dreaming up to be like them, seeing their heroes being, you know, shot down on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, you answered what was going to be my last question. I mean, why is this important? I mean, because you do have people who ask, you know, why be involved in the qualifiers? Why be involved in the games? You know, is this a time? And I get asked that question with the Sudanese national team, because the Sudanese national team actually managed to qualify to the African Cup of Nations, which we played in Morocco, might qualify to the World Cup. I mean, and the country is in war, but for exactly those reasons, you know, we are here, we exist, and I think that's the message that the involvement in the tournament, you know, sends. I think if people want to start lining up for questions, but we'll definitely, you know, have questions to ask.
Questions, please raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you.
I can't see because...
Yeah,
Or you can move yourself also to the aisle so it'll be easier for me to give you the microphone, please. Any questions?
I think we're going to need... Yeah, we're going to need help from, because we can't really see, the light is right there.
Hi, I just have a comment to make about embargoes and then a question about sports and how to relate it to American sports washing in high schools, head injuries and stuff like that. So I wonder if we can make that connection. But I also wanted to say the only country in the world who has a complete embargo on Israel is Turkey. I'm not Turkish. I'm just saying that's a fact. Complete embargo. Spain's is with, you know, things are changing on the ground. So inshallah, there'll be more and more countries that have complete embargoes. But so the question of how to relate it to, like earlier we talked about who wants health care, you know, and the other issues we could relate it to. There's sports washing among, you know, football players in high schools in America throughout the country. So is there some other way we can connect what's happening to those kinds of concealments and issues in the United States?
Well, look, let me speak on Turkey really closely. There isn't a complete per se embargo coming from Turkey, because Turkey's still allowing energy and oil to pump in from Azerbaijan through Turkey. So even though there is a partial embargo coming out of Turkey, the Turkish state has, for the duration of this genocide, enabled oil specifically to pump into Israel from Azerbaijan. And I go to Turkey often, so inshallah I won't be banned from there for saying this, but you got to keep it real. With regard to sports in the States, yeah, look, I think, and we talked about this in the back, Ismail, and I would definitely want to hear from you too. To me, the biggest sports washing league is the NFL. You can't watch the NFL with, you know, seeing a commercial about the U.S. Army, the military-industrial complex, you know, jets flying over the stadium, you know, soldiers being celebrated. So, especially in the post-9/11 context, right? The NFL had emerged as the principal American sort of sports washer of war on terror crimes. And look, I mean, the war in Iraq, in my opinion, if we saw what was happening in Iraq, would be just as horrific as what's happened in Gaza. In my opinion, Iraq was also at minimum ethnic cleansing, at maximum a genocide as well. And the NFL enabled that ethnic cleansing and genocide in Iraq to take place because they endorsed and championed these wars on terror and the military in ways that any other sports league around the world sports washes as well. But we don't think about, and a lot of it's racial, right? We don't think about white entities or American entities engaging in sports washing, even though American sports have been central in war on terror sports washing.
Right. With American sports, I think the bottom line comes to, I mean, where's the money coming from, and what's the role, the intersection of money and sports. I mean, no other country, I think, as the U.S., I mean, you see that intersection of money, sports, and power. And I think that is an issue. And when we're talking a lot about soccer, I mean, soccer in Europe and Africa, the Middle East, I mean, that is a working class sport, and that's where you get the politics that comes out of it. But in the U.S., it's a different. I mean, you have to, where is the money coming from? I think that will be the main question.
All right, next question.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I think my question for you is that we've seen that the World Cup in 2026 is going to be held in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on boycotting the American games in the World Cup.
I personally have hope that just as soccer, growing up has added to one's political consciousness, awareness of the world, I think eventually that is what will happen here in the U.S. And over the last 30 years or more, I mean, you see a growing awareness of soccer, television, of who plays soccer, of where the U.S. Soccer players are recruited from. I mean, if you look at the U.S. national team, up to 1990, and then now it's a different makeup of players, a different class of players. But I think eventually, and we're in our discussion about how South Africa was eventually expelled from FIFA or the CAF, Confederation of African Football. Things take time, but I do think the more the Americans are aware of the world, and a lot of that will come with sports like soccer, I think their interaction with events in the world really changes.
Did you mean like boycotting the entire World Cup or just the American team?
I meant like since there's games in Canada and Mexico,
Yeah.
going to those rather than going to the American. But I appreciate that interpretation as well.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man, because I mean, I want to go to Mexico to watch the game. I like the Mexican national team, El Tri. But look, if Trump has it his way, he's going to make this the MAGA World Cup. He's going to try to use it as a vehicle to like push the MAGA movement or the MAGA movement, whatever it's called, Trumpism. And look, another thing, I teach law in Arizona, and a lot of my students many of them are undocumented. So are there going to be ICE raids at these games in the United States? So, it makes complete sense on a political but also a strategic level to boycott these games in the United States. I won't be going to any matches in the United States, I know, and I'd encourage people to do the same. But if you do go, bring a Palestinian flag with you.
Yeah.
Next question.
Thanks. Thank you for everything you've shared so far. I'm wondering what you think about the opportunity Wissam Abu Ali, who is now guesting for Columbus Crew, Palestinian national team player, has. Being in the United States, playing for the MLS, for either other Palestinian players to have a platform, here to play, and how he might use that opportunity to also draw attention to what's happening to the Palestinian national team.
I'm not aware of that, but I know that's a story that I'd love to follow, and I think that's a great story to write about. I'm not aware of that particular case, but I think that is definitely, I'm sure many journalists would just jump on that story. But yeah, I can see that. I mean, having a Palestinian player in the MLS, that's definitely going to bring attention.
Yeah, especially in Columbus. I mean, Columbus is a very vibrant, like, Muslim community as well. So if he rises to the level of being one of their better players, you know, and like making noise on a national level, that would be a really fabulous story. And look, I think a lot because the Palestinian national team did so well. A lot of their players are going to get a lot of attention from leagues and clubs around the world. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Palestinian footballers, like, you know, rising up to like quality leagues.
And even invited for friendlies. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, you know, the FIFA-sponsored competitions, but even to play in friendlies in different parts of the world. I think that will bring attention.
He scored 3 goals in his first 3 games.
Oh, wow. So inshallah, Yani is going to be one of the better MLS players. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Hi, gentlemen. Thanks for taking our questions. My name is George Cadado. I am first-generation Palestinian American and Palestinian American pro cyclist. And my question for you two is, were you two aware that Gaza also has pro cyclists?
I wasn't. I don't follow cycling, but maybe I should from now on.
I would employ both of you to check out the Gaza Sunbirds. They are a paracycling team based out of Gaza. Seems like a few folks are familiar with the Sunbirds here. Their work here is phenomenal. They all have been victims of either being shot or bombed and are paraplegic athletes, but they still compete at the UCI level, which is the highest level of international cycling. It's the kind of organization that manages the Tour de France and the Olympics.
Amazing.
And their way they train and they race and compete and place very well despite having no infrastructure is super inspiring. So I definitely recommend checking them out.
For sure. I love that. Yeah, I mean, my thing is like bring Palestine in everything, whether basketball or basket weaving. You know, like make Palestine and Gaza central and focal to anything, sports, non-sports. I love that, yeah.
All right, we have last 2 questions.
Hey guys, assalamu alaikum. My name is Yasser. Born here in the States, originally from Egypt as well. Big soccer fan and former D3 athlete. So this has been lingering in my mind. A couple questions. Well, first of all, when Trump said consequences regarding if Israel were banned, which they're most likely gonna not even make it anyways, but no, because they suck too. But anyways, do you think, because I've also heard a lot of rumors about certain fans from other countries won't even be allowed to come to the U.S., they might be denied visa status. Do you think there might be some other greater plan of any type of deportation strategy that they might have over fans specifically from Ottoman Muslim countries that want to come and attend the World Cup? What are your thoughts on that? And I also wanted to hear, what do you think, in your opinion, those consequences would be if Israel finally gets banned?
Well, I mean, as far as fans coming to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, I mean, these are the questions that people are raising, and we were discussing this. I mean, can fans come and watch the World Cup in the U.S.? Officially, the U.S. has said, yeah, they'll make that available and make it easy for fans to come. But I think that's something we'll have to wait and see. But these are the questions that many fans are asking at the moment. The second question was...
What was your second question?
Consequences.
Consequences, basically, Trump's little spiel of threatening to scary consequences.
So this is speculation. This is not, but I mean, I think Trump's close relationship with the head of FIFA, Infantino, I think does raise a lot of questions. And FIFA, we know in the past has had legal issues of corruption. I'm not saying there is or not. I'm just saying, as a journalist, these are the questions I would be asking. why does Trump have the strong relationship with the head of FIFA? If FIFA does decide to expel Israel, if UEFA decides to expel Israel, are there issues that the U.S. can influence on FIFA and UEFA? Again, these are the questions I think any journalist would ask.
All right, last question.
Hello, Khaled. Thanks so much. Quick two-parter. When Diat, Barakat, and the three winners were killed in North Carolina, a major push was made by organizations to get Steph Curry, who we were told, he was a big fan of, to move and to recognize, and he did. What do you think pushes a Steph Curry to look at that as something safe to talk about versus not saying anything about, Gaza and beyond? And then the second part is Kyrie Irving is one of the individuals who has really been pushing. But oftentimes we hear we should support him. But at the same time, it's a catch-22 because you don't want to buy the jerseys and put money back maybe into the system because of your beliefs there. My question is, when they do start speaking out and we say we should support them, in your opinions, what does that look like? What should we be doing? Should we be putting money into the system so they see the Irving jersey selling more? What should we do because we're caught between a rock and a hard place on that, not wanting to support those organizations, but wanting to show those players that we also see them beyond just posts on social media?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I mean, and somebody said yesterday that in supporting these digital platforms, the ones that we use to post and educate about the genocide, we're actually sort of expanding and intensifying the power of these corporations. So there is a catch-22 and a paradox, right? But for me, you got to show love to people like Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown, these basketball stars and soccer stars and athletes that are raising up Gaza in ways that are within the belly of their own beast, like these leagues that are hyper-Zionist. So for me, I make the trade-off that I am going to buy their jersey, I am going to buy their products, I am going to amplify their voices online, because in the grand scheme of things, and invite them to convenings like this, speak to them offline, because it's important for us to not only support what it is they're doing, but to demonstrate to other athletes that if they speak up, there might be some material benefit as well. So they can become models and sort of vehicles to empower new voices within sports to speak up and show that it is safe to speak up on Gaza. You can win new audiences, you can win new consumers and new communities. It's not only a loss if you speak up for Gaza.
Yeah. That's the end of our session. Thank you. There's much more we can talk about sports. I know we focused on soccer, but I think that is one area.
Oh yeah.
That's what ABC is.
Yeah, and again,